The Utah Jazz have the best record in the NBA, and they are the only team with a top 5 offensive and defensive rating. What's the secret behind their success? Is it Quinn Snyder's hair, or his skinny jeans, or his Vans? Nah, it's all due to plays on offense like this beauty, with motion around Rudy Gobert to stir the defense and get everybody moving. Conley Gobert pick and rolls, forcing defenders into rotation, and then bang, bang, quick decisions with the pass and the drive to create open shots. What a gorgeous possession this is. And it's about defense like this. Even without Rudy Gobert, the Defensive Player of the Year frontrunner on the court, the Jazz still play strong pick-and-roll defense with Favors. And they run shooters off the three-point line, they make perfect rotations, and they hustle to force turnovers. This happens time after time, all game long on both ends, because then they make you pay again on the offensive end of the floor. They just know where to go with the ball. Here it's Mitchell to Favors to Bogdanovic with the ball on a string. The Jazz are rotating defensively and whipping the ball around the floor like they're telepathic. Utah is really, really good. That's undeniable. But are they true NBA Finals contenders? That's the big question. On today's episode of The Void, we'll explore factors that have the Jazz dominating the regular season, what they still have to prove, and how it all impacts their title hopes. The Jazz have one of the league's most lethal offenses this season, largely because of their shooting talent across the entire roster. The Jazz have 9 nightly rotation players. Only Gobert and Favors don't shoot threes, and only Niang and Clarkson are under 40%. Is this an early season hot streak? Maybe a little, but the Jazz were number 1 in the NBA in three-point percentage last season and only 8th in three-point frequency. Now they're just leaning into what they already do at a high level. This season, they're number 1 in the NBA with the highest share of threes attempted, and they get so many of those open shots because of the guy who doesn't take any of them, Rudy Gobert. The Jazz ran a double high screen with Bogdanovic and Gobert screening for Mitchell. As soon as Gobert rolls, it forces Zion to help. The defense is in a pick your poison situation here. If Zion doesn't help, it's a lob to Gobert. But he does, and Mitchell lasers the ball to O'Neale in the corner. That's nasty. Gobert's gravity forces defenses into the paint and away from the three-point line, which gives Utah's playmakers time to find shooters. Defenses have no choice. Gobert is one of the game's greatest rim runners, averaging a dominant 1.3 points per roll since 2017. They have to respect his scoring potential, which is one reason he leads the NBA in points generated from screens. I know. Screen assists have become a bit of a joke on NBA Twitter, but there's nobody who sets better screens than Gobert and serves as a greater threat to finish around the rim. And he's become one of the NBA's better bigs at passing out of the roll. Gobert won't end up with a point or an assist in this play, but he makes it all happen first by finding Conley cutting and then rolling hard. At this point, the weak side defender has a choice to make: collapse to the paint to contain Gobert or stay home on a shooter. They collapse on Gobert and he delivers. Ingles just drives on by for an open shot, and that leads us to our next key to Utah's success. Every guard and every wing on the Jazz can do more than just shoot. They can also cut, dribble, and pass. This is obviously basic stuff, but not all players can do all of the basics. Utah has all smart players who can plug into different roles and spots on the court. The Jazz are constantly in motion with cutters and off-ball screeners, all moving with the purpose to generate an open shot. Keep your eyes on Bogdanovic here, who migrates towards the rim and then does an about-face through a down screen to drive off the pass. This movement, in combination with Favors on the roll, forces the Clippers to help. Ingles can make plays off the bounce, and Clarkson can finish you with his shot. Here's Dennis Rodman describing Utah's motion.
Boom, click and go back this way. Boom, here, click and go that way.
You'll even occasionally see Clarkson being utilized as a screener as he slips this screen to get to the rim. Utah just puts players into a wide variety of positions to flourish, and they all execute to perfection. Something you'll see Ingles do a lot of in pick and roll is fake a pass to Gobert rolling before going into his own layup. It's tricky for defenses because he sometimes will indeed deliver that pass, and again, Gobert is such a threat that defenses have to respect the pass. This level of skill is why the Jazz distribute touches among all of their rotation players. The Jazz have 7 players averaging over 20 front court touches per game and 5 averaging over 2 assists. With multiple ball handlers who can pressure defenses, the Jazz are using Mitchell off the ball more often. He attempted 5 pull-up twos per game last season compared to 3.5 this season. Those shots have instead been replaced by catch-and-shoot threes. He's taking 4 per game compared to less than 3 last season. And for his career, he's hit 42% of his spot-up threes, so he's a shooting threat that defenses gotta respect. The fact that Mitchell, who, let's remember, averaged 36 points in the first round last year, is willing to go off the ball is a testament to his willingness to sacrifice for the greater good of the team and to the rising skill level of the shot makers around him.
And that kind of just trickles down to every player on our roster. And we just sacrifice for each other, play our basketball, and whether, the outcome is what we want, we know we're going to leave it out there, and that's the kind of, mindset we've had.
The 3 primary shot creators on Utah are Mitchell, Conley, and Clarkson. One big difference between last season and this season is simply time. Conley himself admitted he had to adjust to playing in a new system, living in a new city, and playing with a lob threat like Gobert. He played with Marc Gasol his entire career. And then with Clarkson, he was acquired in a midseason trade. Those guys have all had more time together, and Quinn Snyder has had the ability to keep 2 of them on the court for pretty much the entire game. This season, nearly 80% of their minutes have had 2 of Mitchell, Conley, and Clarkson on the court at once, and most of the remainder of that time features one of them. None of these guys are elite shooters like Curry or Dame, or elite ball handlers like Harden or Kyrie, but they're all very, very good, and their powers combined can make them great. Clarkson would be my pick to win 6th Man of the Year as of today. He's making a massive impact with and without the ball in his hands. He's spotting up and coming off screens, and he's also able to run a pick and roll or isolate towards the end of the shot clock to create a bucket. Conley also now has chemistry with Gobert. They're connecting on the regular. Last season, Conley assisted Gobert 0.7 times per game. Now it's double at 1.4. They got a connection. Here, Conley hesitates as Gobert starts his roll to the rim, then attacks the moment Gobert rolls. And he throws the pass the moment KP swipes toward the ball. That is masterful pick and roll work by Conley. Conley is learning how to operate with him to create for himself too. He can pull up for threes as you'd expect to see, but now on drives, he has a better feel for using Gobert's presence to his own advantage. Here on the drive, Conley plays with a steady pace, waiting for the precise moment to leave his feet, knowing Capella is gonna retreat to Gobert, which gives him his own space to score. At age 33, it's pretty cool to see Mike Conley back to being Mike Conley again. When his acquisition first happened in 2019, I wrote that it made the Jazz contenders because it gave them another shot creator. That's what they needed to destroy switching defenses. And by the way, Utah is way better at beating switches than it gets credit for in that area. It's the depth of the options they have that means they can seek advantageous matchups for themselves. So even if the Jazz slip a little bit offensively, they're always going to be able to lean on their defense. As my friend Ben Taylor from Thinking Basketball once said in a video, Gobert isn't a rim protector, Gobert is a paint protector. This is a good example of why. Terry Rozier thinks better of driving to the rim, gives up the ball, and then still gets blocked by Gobert's enormous reach as soon as he gets it back. Utah's defensive philosophy is reliant on Gobert. They sell out on three-point shooters and allow the second lowest share of attempted threes. They close out hard, force teams to drive, and that can often lead to sloppy passes and turnovers, or it simply funnels the ball handler right towards Gobert for him to swallow them up. Royce O'Neale is the team's best on-ball defender against wings, though everyone on that team plays a smart, fundamental brand of basketball. They understand their roles, where to be, and how to get stops. However, there's still this myth floating out there that Gobert becomes a liability in the playoffs because once upon a time, he was hurt and Steph Curry put him in a spin cycle. It couldn't be further from the truth though. Gobert is so good positionally, so strong, and so long. Opponents often settle for jumpers when ISO'd against him. He still gets blocks. And even if they attempt to drive by him, he's able to stretch out and still block them. There are a few bigs you'd rather have in this situation than Gobert. He is the game's best defender, period. Jazz fans got heated with me for having Utah 6th in my power rankings this week. I mean, I got a lot of hate for it. And I love that though. Jazz fans are passionate about their team and they see people doubting Utah for their past playoff mistakes, which is unfair, by the way. This Jazz team is more experienced. Mitchell is more developed and the roster and system have evolved to the point where it's really kind of pointless to compare this squad to past versions of themselves. As for putting them sixth, most power rankings tend to be based on just recent performance. Then Utah would be the no-kidding number one. But my power rankings are more about which team would you least want to play in a must-win game? How does this team project in the postseason? Because that's when the best teams perform at their peaks. My rankings are more of a projection, and the Jazz still do have some questions. So here are my three main questions. First, what happens in a game where perimeter shots aren't falling? The Jazz aren't a team that gets to the rim or to the foul line very often. And even though Utah has a lot of different ways to score, I do want to see how they operate in those types of games when they aren't hitting shots. Second, are they missing a defender who's heavier and longer than Royce O'Neale? I'm talking about a guy who can really bother the likes of Kawhi or LeBron in a playoff series. Someone who can make LeBron look over his shoulder and get a little bit worried. Maybe I'm nitpicking a little bit here though, because even though Royce O'Neale is only 6'4", he has stopped taller and longer scorers like Brandon Ingram and bigger and stronger ones like Julius Randle. Lastly, and most importantly, is Mitchell ready to take the leap? The five teams I currently have ranked ahead of the Jazz are the Lakers, who have the GOAT in AD, the Clippers with a finals MVP in PG, the Sixers with an MVP contender in Embiid, the Nets with two former MVPs in Kyrie, and then the Bucks with a two-time MVP in Chris Middleton, who, by the way, is the league's most underrated player. Talent usually wins out in the postseason, and I'd say those teams ahead of them have better top-end players. With all that said, the sheer collective can outweigh the power of a group of stars. Quinn Snyder hopes it could too.
I feel good about our team. I think the fact that they're playing together, that's something that, that we obviously all realize is important. When the whole can be greater than the sum of the parts, everybody wins and guys are elevating one another.
The Jazz are really, really good and have so many different ways of scoring on you or stopping you. But over the next 2 weeks, they have a brutal stretch of games, and I look forward to seeing how they perform and adapt on a night-to-night basis. This 8-game marathon won't necessarily change the fact that the Jazz will be a formidable playoff opponent. It could, however, show they undeniably belong in the NBA Finals conversation. Thank you so much for watching this week's episode of The Void. Please comment below or hit me up on social media. I want to know. What do you think about Utah's upside in the playoffs? And what video topics would you like to have me cover in the future? Thank you to Dylan Berkey, Sean Yu, and our entire team for making The Void. Please do us a big favor. Like this video, share it with your friends who love the NBA, and subscribe to The Ringer on YouTube. Thank you again for watching. I hope you have a fun rest of your day.